And we are so fortunate to have Lakia from Charleston County. She's going to be presenting today with Karen Elfner from the BASS team, and I'm excited to learn from them as I'm sure you all are too. And I'm going to turn it over to them now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Lakia Johnson-Drayton. I am a trained school psychologist, but currently serving as the interim director of special education support, as well as interim 504 district coordinator. This is our second year partnered with the Behavioral Alliance of South Carolina. So where y'all are at right now, we did that last year. And I can say that as the time goes past, the partnership is grew, and we're looking forward to even continuing that partnership. Karen?
Yep. Thank you, Lakia. We're so fortunate to have Lakia, and you'll see in other echoes some of our great members from Cohort 1 that are sharing some of their experiences with you. We think you'll have more opportunities to collaborate together at the Summer University, where we'll have I think a whole day together with both cohorts. So good to get to know each other. So during this didactic, there are a couple things that we wanted to try to cover. First is, why do we need to have a behavior goal at the district level? And then how do you even begin to develop those? How do you identify and develop those so you have some meaningful goals? And then how do you do that in a way that aligns the district support for other initiatives? So using goals as a way to kind of coordinate. Is my voice choppy or just my video?
Your voice is fine. We can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Karen.
Okay, good. Okay, so if we want to go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm going to start with kind of a little bit of more the theoretical about why, and then Lakia will talk a little bit about what it looks like in real life. So we know that there's a very strong association, evidence-based, between academic and behavior success. So while academics are our primary concern in the school systems, we know that having the kinds of behaviors that allow students to be engaged and participate in school are necessary. And next. So the framework that we're delivering and helping you to develop is MTSSB, and that helps to create an environment that is positive, predictable, consistent, and has been found to reduce disruptions to instruction. And by improving that behavior, you're more efficient at your teaching and learning. So that's what you're there for. So if we can get those other foundational things in order, then you'll be able to have better advancement of your academic goals. And we often use exclusionary practices when we're dealing with disciplinary problems, and then those students often are lacking access to as much instruction as they need. And so there's a reduced exposure to what could be effective instruction. And conversely, so if you don't have effective behavior supports, also students have increased exclusionary discipline, which means they're not accessing the instruction. And of course, lost instructional time. So sometimes inadvertently, in the way that we're, if we aren't supporting behavior successfully, then we're responding and excluding students, which then results in lost instructional time, and then we're not able to reach those goals. So some reasons to have theoretically and what the evidence shows. So Lakia.
Perfect. And so with Charleston County School District, what we do regularly, like any other school district, we review data. to make plans for the next year. And our superintendent at the time was Donald Kennedy. And we just had that courageous conversation. You know, we can't argue with data. The data is what it is. But our data highlighted a large achievement gap for our marginalized group. And when I say marginalized, we're talking about our multi-language learners, our Black students, and our pupils in poverty. And in general, we had low achievement performance on South Carolina Ready ELA tests district-wide. So our superintendent stated plainly, according to the 2022 South Carolina School Report Card, only 53.3% of our students are meeting or exceeding grade level expectations on South Carolina Ready English Language Arts tests. And we wanted to build a system where our students are prepared academically so that they can enter the next grade successfully, graduate high school on time, and enter college or obtain a good paying job after leaving CCSD. That's our why. It highlights the need for achievement, but we knew that we can't achieve if they're not ready for learning mentally or emotionally. Next slide, Catherine.
Okay, so thinking about having behavior and climate goals, most of you are looking at data, so using the data to identify and as clearly as you can what the problem is. You can problem solve a problem when you've identified it more clearly, and then figure out where the gap is. So if it's out of school suspension and you have a large portion of your students that are missing academic instruction due to absences, and many of those absences are ones that were due to out of school suspension, then, and those students aren't making their achievement. So thinking about where you are, just like we do in academics, where you are and where you want to be. And so doing that in a structured way through your database problem solving, so that then the goals that you have are ones that are specific enough that you'll know if they're happening and that they're measurable, so you can tell if how successful you are at reaching your goals or approaching them. And they need to be relevant, but then also time bound. So maybe you have a 3-year goal and then some 1-year goals. So thinking about those specifically. So one like pitfall that some people make is having kind of just a general goal, like we'd like to improve behavior. Well, what is the data that indicates the behavioral problem or where you want to be? So getting as specific, and we would like to reach this level by such and such a time. So I think Lakia is going to help you understand how they've done that.
Yeah, and honestly, we use our community to help us to get to the final result. Our goal is actually, that's your slide.
That's just a sample. I'm sorry. Yeah. So
Okay.
here's just that was just, you can go ahead and go forward, Kathy. This is just an example of what I was talking about. Some very specific goal examples. So if you just wanted to see a few hypothetical goals and then go on.
Yeah. So we met with, so we're a restorative practice. We're promoting restorative practice. Not sure how that's going to look right now with some changes and, possible changes in legislation. But what restorative practice is all about doing things with others instead of to and for. And so to create our goal, we met with community members, we met with student groups, we met with district leaders as well as teachers for their feedback to help create a SMART goal. And what we did was we split in 3 areas. Again, we want to grow literacy. We're looking at our math data, grow algebra readiness and achievement, as well as college and career readiness. So in looking at our marginalized group for literacy, we wanted to, focus on our marginalized groups, and that's the percentage of Black, African American, and Hispanic 5th grade students reading on grade level will increase from 25.5% in July 2022 to 60.7% in July 2027. And we're using South Carolina Ready ELA results as a way to measure progress and know whether or not we're making meaningful progress towards our goal. The second, for algebra readiness and achievement, the percentage of all CCS students enrolled in 8th grade achieving a C or higher on the Algebra 1 ELC exam by the end of 8th grade will increase from 24.9% in May 2022 to 60.3% in May 2027. And then lastly, the focusing on college and career readiness, we wanted the percentage of students in the 4-year cohort who graduate college and career ready will increase from 67.7% in August 2022 to 86.2% in August 2027, as measured by South Carolina College and Career Readiness Indicators. So when we combine all of that, our vision for 2027 by June 2027 is that all students will read on grade level by 5th grade. And there's been some discussion because there are some students are profoundly intellectually disabled students. It's going to be very difficult. Like, is that a true or realistic or inclusive goal to include all of our students? So we're working on that language now in preparation of a rebranding of our mission. But again, we brought the community. That includes organization as well as parents, students, teachers, in creation of that goal in our constituent boards. We can slide to the next slide, Catherine. So we also knew that in order to reach our ambitious goals, that we had to be intentional and strategic with increasing students' attendance rate, strengthening positive school climate, encouraging parent and community engagement, and promoting employability skills. So those were necessary to support our ambitious academic goals. So we adopted guardrails to ensure that we stay the course. Guardrails are defined boundaries, policies, and frameworks that guide an organization actions, ensuring alignment with its goals and values while fostering a healthy and successful environment. So we have 5 guardrails, and each guardrail has interim guardrails that are SMART. And we'll explore that on the next slide. Essentially, the goals and guardrails communicate the next steps in our vision, long-term vision, if we can stay on that slide, about what they want to be true for students and the values that we needed to protect along the way. And once adopted, the superintendent's job then is to implement them by selecting and building the strategies necessary to accomplish the goals while honoring guardrails. So this is where you will find our behavior, social emotional behavior goals for the district. And one, just to highlight specifically the behavior, and that's what social emotional learning. The superintendent shall not allow students to go without social emotional learning. The superintendent shall not present major initiatives to board without engaging schools, districts, and community stakeholders who are impacted by the initiative for our decision. And that's all about community building and relationship building. Also, the superintendent shall not allow desperate treatment of or low expectations for any student. And then lastly, climate. The superintendent shall not allow a negative or unsupportive staff culture. And so, as I mentioned to you previously, each guardrail, we have our SMART goals. Catherine, if you can move to the next slide. And an example of that is our social emotional learning goal. We have the percentage of elementary schools achieving an average of 70% or higher on the SAM TFI. So that's monitoring the effectiveness of our MTSS team as well as our PBIS. And then it looks at middle school. So we have separate goals because where they're at, we found that PBIS and MTSS is stronger in the elementary levels, and that is kind of consistent just based on research across the nation versus middle school and high school. So their goals to make it SMART, the number is somewhat different. The percentages where they're starting at and where we want them to end is different. Next slide, Karen.
So thinking then, if you have strategically developed some goals, hopefully with your stakeholders, as Charleston did, then how are you going to achieve those goals? And thinking about the activities and initiatives, programs, practices that you're promoting and supporting, and how do they fit in terms of being able to help you to reach those goals. So one of the ways that on the back end we think about this in program implementation is there's the inputs or what's invested. So that's your money, your training, your policy development. And then the outputs is kind of what's happening. So what are we seeing going on that's different as a result of what we put in? And then the outcomes or the impact are those goals, like what is making a difference in terms of how our students are achieving and behaving. And so what's invested, what we put in should directly support those goals. So if we know what our goals are, we can be very strategic about the things that we're putting effort in and resources into to make sure that they align. But activities aren't a goal, right? The activity isn't the outcome. So having a school be a champ school or having that is not an outcome. That's an output. So if you got trained in the practice, you would hopefully see in a school implementation of different strategies, but the outcome or the goal should be a student behavior. So you can go on to the next one.
And that's a great segue into our pillars. So we have these ambitious academic goals and college readiness goals. And we have our guardrails to keep us, on the path that we want to head towards. But then we have pillars, and that's supporting all of that work. And this is something that we have to align with, and that's rigorous grade level instruction, high quality teachers and leaders, as well as wraparound services. We contracted with a third party vendor, Water Centers for System Thinking. They provided training for district leadership, all various departments. And one of the quotes that stuck with me is that the system is perfectly designed to get the results it's getting. So I interpret it as if we want better outcomes for our students, then we have to disrupt the system so that it can align with our ambitions so that we can grow essentially. And so all of our professional development opportunity initiatives, all of our connections with different organizations, we have to identify the pillar that work, that system, that process, that policy aligns with. And on the next slide, Catherine, I have a list of some of the things that we have proceeded with to help us reach our goal. And that's one, we knew that we had to, we were identified as being disproportionate with disciplining our Black students, our students with special needs. And so we entered into a partnership with the Behavioral Alliance of South Carolina. We are piloting we have about 4 schools that are early adopters. That's to help with that initiative. We are currently using the weighted school formula and that is aligning with our language learners, our pupils in poverty, as well as our students with disabilities. So funding is provided based on that ratio. And it took a lot of work to get to where we're at, but we have seen positive outcomes from that initiative. We are partnered with an organization to support blended coaching, and that's through our leaders, our principals supporting teachers to ensure that, that we're providing that rigorous learning environment. We have a robust attendance campaign. We know that students need to be in the seat and available mentally in order to grow academically. We have competitive wages. I'm not sure if you've seen the news, but our teachers, our first year teachers, I think this school year will be starting out making about $60-some thousand a year, which is amazing. For us, I'm not sure if y'all are experiencing some vacancies because folks are leaving our district to come down here, but it has been a great tool. Most recently, just something funny, we blew up a poster of the drafted salary schedule during a recruitment affair and was walking around. And as teachers were coming up, we were asking, how many years of experience you have? Oh, this is what you'll be starting at. And we're also looking at some initiative for our teachers who teach those specialized programming that requires intense support, our students who require intense support. I don't have specific details with that, but know that they are a subgroup that requires a lot more support, as well as, you know, we may need to think about a compensation plan for them. But all of that can be found on the draft version of our salary schedule is posted and available online, just in case you want to use that as a target for, you know, if you want to have a meeting with your superintendent. And then we're prioritizing restorative practice training through IIRP. And that has been something we've been doing that for about 5 years, but it's growing. Some schools are school-wide trained on restorative practice. You know, again, restorative practice, we can't mandate it because we want to do it with them. And it won't, if we're saying you're required to do this, it doesn't align with the principles behind restorative practices. We also have consistent and frequent district-wide community engagement initiatives. We want to be out, meet the community where they're at instead of expecting them to meet us in the schoolyard, because we know like some families are working 2 jobs and it's very difficult for them to come to meetings. So we want to go out and be visible so that they can hear and trust, all about building relationships, and district-wide social emotional learning curriculum. And with that, we have Second Steps. I'm pretty sure many of y'all are familiar with Second Steps. We also have Rethink Ed for our middle school and high school. And then we have a lot of layering options as well. So this list is non-exhaustive, but it's just some things projects that we are actively working on. And if I know we're at 12:30, but if you give me 2 minutes, we have our Department of Student Support Services. They provide, so within that department is our school psychologists, our school counselors, we have a climate coach, our social workers, mental health wellness coaches, and they have this great website that is school facing. And this is where we house all of our resources to support social, emotional, and behavior functioning. And you'll see we have a continuum map that goes through the tiers. We have tier 1 strategies listed, just like click away. So instead of school teams having to search for them, they're available. They're gathered collectively here. Hold on. For teachers and staff, PBIS classroom management, that's tier 1. For families, for tier 2, we have different initiatives as well. So it's like a landing tool for our MTSS. But today I'm just highlighting the social emotional behavior. And that's all I have for you at this time. Do y'all have any questions?